Welcome, readers. Today on Book Chat, joining me are my three book bloggers, one series read-along co-host, Casey and Nicola. We're discussing the first book in the Night Huntress series, Halfway to the Grave by Janine Frost. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Participate in this book discussion by joining the Facebook group Shelf Addiction Official. Talk about the series with us there, as well as other bookish topics. I hope to hear your thoughts on this book discussion. You can find all three of us on Twitter and Instagram. The links for everything I've mentioned are below in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support this podcast by sharing it with some book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. That will really help me out, and I appreciate you for doing so. Before we get started, I have to issue a spoiler warning. This is a roundtable book discussion, so nothing is off limits. You've been warned. We have a fun hour ahead of us, so let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back. We are kicking off our brand new series, and this time we are back to the world of vampires, and this time it's dark and urban fantasy like, and that is the Night Huntress series. Today we are talking about book 1, Halfway to the Grave. Joining me as always are the three book bloggers, one series read-along co-host, Nicola and Casey. They are going to run down the stats and the synopsis for the book. So Nicola, why don't you start first?
Sure thing. So if you're reading the print book, it's 384 pages, published by HarperCollins. The publication date was 2009 of October. And if you're listening to it on audio, your narrator is Tavia Gilbert, and the unabridged length is 11 hours and 18 minutes.
Cool. Casey?
All right, Halfway to the Grave. Half-vampire Catherine Caulfield is going after the undead with a vengeance, hoping that one of these deadbeats is her father, the one responsible for ruining her mother's life. Then she's captured by Bones, a vampire bounty hunter, and is forced into an unholy partnership. In exchange for finding her father, Cat agrees to train with the sexy Night Stalker until her battle reflexes are as sharp as his fangs. She's amazed she doesn't end up as his dinner, and are there actually good vampires? Pretty soon, Bones will have her convinced that being half dead doesn't have to be all bad. But before she can enjoy her newfound status as a kick-ass demon hunter, Cat and Bones are pursued by a group of killers. Now Cat will have to choose a side, and Bones is turning out to be as tempting as any man with a heartbeat.
Okay, so full disclosure, we all have read this series already, but it's been a long time. So it's like new. It's like new.
To be fair, though, I've read this, I don't know, 5 times, maybe more.
So Casey's...
I started this book back in like 2010. Okay. I picked it up pretty early. God, I can't speak today. But I love Cat and Bones, so this is always worth a reread.
And I'm the latecomer. I didn't read it until about 2 years ago. And I got to tell you, I can tell you exactly the reason why is the cover of this book. It is so terrible.
Is it better or worse than Burn for Me?
Better.
I don't know, because Burn for Me, I was already on the ebook kick, right? So covers are not as important to me as they were when I was only reading print.
No, but if you had them side by side right now, I know we all hate the Mad Rogan on the Burn for Me cover.
It's still cheesy, but I think better.
I think it might be better. It's just that the proportions are so wrong. If she stood up, her legs would be her thigh is as long as her body. It's just wrong. And I just can't get over it. So.
See, when I see someone like that, I didn't think out of proportion. I thought like tall like me. Like she's a 5'10" person or 5'9" woman who, because I'm all leg. Honestly, I have a short torso, but I'm all leg. So I believe it.
Yeah, it just looks really, really wrong to me.
But I don't remember. How tall is Cat? Did they ever say like her stature?
I don't remember.
Did I miss it?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
So,
Okay.
so much for that. But that's why it took me so long to get on that bandwagon.
You're like, the cover, I can't do it. That's so hilarious.
I'm usually not like that, but there's been a couple covers that have turned me off so hard. This one and the Cressley Cole's Immortals After Dark first book was also really awful. So
it's so cheesy. It's good though. I'm sorry.
I mean, honestly, a lot of these covers are bad. Like, even the Karen Marie Moning, the first book, The Dark Fever, the very first book, that's an awful cover too. It all looks like kind of...
Which version?
Like the one that has like the two, it's a black background with like a woman and a man that are like red.
Or like mostly naked and she's holding herself and
I'm like, that looks a little porny, you know what I'm saying? So
a lot of these early
I can see
a lot of the early urban fantasies were kind of porny. I mean, Cressley Cole's definitely was. That novella that started the series out was really more erotica, and certainly that one gosh, I'm not going to be able to remember. I haven't read it, but it's the one that's been going on for so long. I can't think of it right now. Sorry.
No worries.
Carpathians?
Behan is a little, but I was thinking of
Sherilyn Kenyon?
Yes.
Those old school covers are 90s as fuck.
I think it was the 90s though, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, no, they came out in the late 90s and they're so cheesy. But anyway, now that we've had our 5-minute tangent,
it's relevant. The start of the whole thing. It's relevant.
Should we get back to Cat and Bones?
But we could move on now.
So I love how this whole thing starts. Like, Kat is out there just killing vampires the best way she knows how, which isn't the very smart way, but she's doing what she knows.
She killed 16 vampires in 6 years.
Without any training.
Zero training.
Yep, just her own.
And no backup.
But leave it to Bones. He made sure to like let her know, hey dude, you were picking young guys. You're picking guys that weren't as strong as me. You're lucky you're alive, kind of thing. Which I get his point.
He was so creepy in that first couple of scenes where she tried to pick him up, and he was just so weird about it. And she was too.
Oh, and not to mention when she actually did go back and see him, and they're in the car, and he's like, "Wanna bleep?" And she's like, "What?"
That was her. That was how she picked him up, and then he's just like going with it. He's like, "Okay, take off your clothes." She's like,
and she's looking crazy. She's like, "What?" And he's like, taking his junk out. I'm like, "What?" It was kind of like a dare. Like, I dare you to, do me right here.
Absolutely daring her. And that's basically their entire relationship in a nutshell.
Fair enough. Yeah. And she was coming right back with it too. So.
Oh, absolutely.
She'd never run into anybody that was, that could out strength her, I guess,
or even outwit her, because like when they went to the car, she wanted him to drive. He refused.
Yep.
She's used to horny, hungry vampires, and he knew what she was. Like, he watched her chop up the first vampire the night before, so he knew exactly what she was doing. Everybody else she played thought she was just some helpless human woman.
That's just my point, right? So,
yeah. So he was fucking with her, and she had no idea how to deal with it.
And this is, I guess, one of my favorite tropes in romance in general, is just this really strong woman who finally meets her match, right? So it discombobulates her and him too, because he's, I don't know, that's one of the things I love about romance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, absolutely. Especially the paranormal genre.
Yeah, this definitely had like a couple of the more well-known tropes, I think, like especially with Bones being the old, rich, super strong vampire with this young girl. But thankfully, she's a grown-ass adult, thank God.
She's 22.
She's not a teenager. Yes. she's of drinking age. So there's that.
She strikes me as being very much the ingenue, though. She's isolated. She doesn't have any friends. She grew up in the sticks. She's got zero sophistication. I think I love this series, but Frost's writing definitely gets more polished as the series goes on. I think this book, she comes off really immature in some places, and really teenagery sometimes, I thought.
So originally, I've heard Janine Frost talk about this. When she first wrote this book, Kat was like 18 or 19.
Okay.
And then when she sold it to Avon, they're like, you have to make her older.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So originally she was a teenager and she was that young, and they just had to like bump the age up a few years to make her 22.
Mm-hmm.
So she still acts like a teenager. Like they didn't quite get rid of all of that. And that's why she's so young, because she was supposed to be a teenager.
Okay. That makes sense, especially in this installment. The way she handles herself with certain things, she is kind of acting childish in some ways, but I think it's not because she's a brat or anything. It's just the best way she knows how.
Yeah. No, she's definitely very isolated.
It's that lack of sophistication that, and the way she reacts sometimes is just very inexperienced, I think.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was those 2 hours where he was trying to teach her how to not blush.
Yeah.
I think I would be blushing during what he said.
Yeah.
The 250-year-old vampire who used to be a prostitute was telling you exactly how he'd fuck you. Yeah, I'd be blushing.
Oh, Lord. Oh, my God. I'd be blushing, and I'm not a spring chicken. I'd be like, what? Like, for real? Okay.
Is that even possible? You want to do what now?
Yeah, that was I liked how it was explicit, but not explicit, right? There was just a couple of lines, and then it gave you the idea, and then it let your imagination run wild with that. And I liked the callback to that scene later, if we can jump ahead a little bit, when he starts, working down his agenda. And she's like, no, wait a minute. And he's like, oh no, I meant every word.
Oh, it's going down. That's
right.
What's happening. Yeah.
I did several times, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God for that.
I have a very, very active sex life, even if we don't see it every single time.
I agree, and I like that because it is a sexy book. The scenes that are there are pretty explicit, but there's also a lot that's implied, right? So it's not like I don't know, you're not reading through page after page after page of the events. So the sexy times. You're gonna have to mark this one adult again, Tamara. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you know what? All of these are explicit. Like, we've all dropped an F-bomb or two at least once. I don't know. So anyway, we're good to go. But I think that what makes Kat and Bones so fun as a couple is that because she's half vampire, like, it makes it more believable for me. Like, her aggressiveness about her man and being like, don't you be thinking my man's gonna, do anything with you, grabbing his junk, like. I mean, they're wild. They are wild about each other, and it shows, and that's kind of cool. But I believe it because, she's vampire like him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And vampires are very territorial.
Yeah, and that's said, quite explicitly in the book. But I think when I read that scene. So what happens is you read the scene and you go, wow, that's kind of over the top. and then later Bones is explaining to her, well, that's how vampires are, girl. And then as a reader, you're like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. At least for me it was. Because, like, I just can't imagine, like, being so jealous that, like, without thinking I'm, like, grabbing the guy's, that's not going to happen.
I don't think I would have grabbed his stuff. I think I don't know what I would have done when she's like, you need to claim me. And she's like, what? She just jumped to, like, the worst version of claiming. But I probably wouldn't have grabbed his stuff. I don't think.
Yeah, and the way it was written, it was like she wasn't even thinking. Like she looked down and all of a sudden she realized she was holding him. I'm like, I don't see how you can do that without thinking.
Oh my God. And his friend, what's his face? He's just kind of laughing like, oh my God, yeah. Spade's like, oh, I know. Them and the names too. Just a side note, like, Crispin, Bones, Spade. What's his real name?
Don't remember. Something
I can't think. But even Kat says that. She's like, pick a name and stick to it. Why are we calling each other these two different names?
Yeah.
Because technically they had two different lives, their human life, their vampire life.
I think that's it, exactly. And I think I'm just imagining that if you went through that kind of change, that it would feel like, you'd need a different name. If I can go on a slight tangent, I have a friend whose child is transitioning right now, and they're in kind of this big drama about choosing a new name. So it's kind of, it's reminding me of that. So,
well, I understand changing a name for a new life if you want that, but to keep going back and forth between them, 1 minute you're Bones, 1 minute you're Crispin, 1 minute, which are you? Pick one.
I liked when in the bar when he picked her up and introduced himself as Crispin. He's like, okay, this is a different role we're playing tonight. And I thought that was a nice touch.
That was so cute.
It was so sweet until it turned violent.
Yeah, it was cute until
it was supposed to, but at the moment that he did the introduction, it was going to be a nice date. And I think that the using their old names is a callback to their humanity. So when they're wanting to be, be a reminder that they were once human, then that's when they call back to the old names or a reminder.
Because I always thought of that kind of as like a sign of being friendly instead of like an enemy. Like, we're friends, so I know your real name. Like when Kat came upon Spade in the
forest,
in the, what is that thing, cave or whatever, and he kind of like tried to convince her that they were friends. We're friendly. I'm friends with Crispin or whatever, and she's like, that's what I thought. But maybe
I think it just means they knew each other before the change, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit of both, because they were friends before and now they're friends after. Yeah. And it's holding on to their friendship and their humanity and everything all at once.
It'll be interesting to kind of watch that consciously through the rest of the series, because it's not something I thought about a ton the first time I read through it.
No, and I think that's also like a perk of rereading a series. I feel like you can like dissect it a little more, because the first time you're so in love with like the couple or the fantasy of it, you're just like blowing through it, and now you kind of can have the moment to step back and kind of break things down a little more than you would have.
Notice some of those littler details.
Exactly.
Okay. What else was going on in this book? So much. Oh, let's talk about the villain, guys. I totally forgot who the villain was until almost to the end. I'm like, oh yeah.
So much happened in the last 10% of this book. It was wild. So.
Yeah.
It was insane.
I gotta say, that was a crazy human trafficking ring that they were running, trafficking for blood and then other things. That was pretty dark.
It was.
Oh yeah.
On the other hand, it was also somewhat simple in the it wasn't very complicated, right? So the governor is just like this evil bad guy who sees all of the benefits of cleaning up the homeless, but I think homeless teenage girls are not the kind of homeless that people feel threatened by. But
no, and not only that, they weren't getting homeless people anymore. They were not abiding by that.
They were getting college girls.
Yeah. It started out, I guess, with but yeah, it was to me, it was a little bit strange, just because, the villain we only see the villain for 5 minutes before he's killed, right? So he gives the classic, this is my evil plot, speech, and then she kills him, right? so the whole buildup is all about Hennessy, the vampire that's doing all the dirty work, and and how and all these hints about how it goes so far up you'll never be able to stop it or whatever, and she just walks right in, and like 15 minutes later it's all over. So,
that's what I'm talking about. Just take the guy out. Just who cares? You know, he running his mouth.
Like
just
that.
take him out.
In retrospect, like when I was reading it, I was like, well, I don't know, there's something about, there's not a lot of build up there, you know, but it kind of brings home her power over humans, I guess, and other vampires too, because he didn't have really great vampires, right? He had younger ones.
Yeah.
And don't forget though, Kat had just drank a ton of blood from Bones, so she was a little bit hyped up.
She was topped off.
Yeah.
I love how it pulled in that humans are just as evil as vampires.
Yep.
Because she was almost anti-hurting any human throughout. She's like, vampires are so evil, humans are good. Like, and it just tied into the fact that no, humans are just as evil as vampires, and they're working together.
Yeah, that was really the underlying theme here, is that, you know, she started out in a very black and white world, and it's definitely not that way at the end.
No, she had a lot of lessons to learn really fast, because she was very, very, living through life with blinders on because of her mom. And it did take someone like Bones besting her.
That she was almost the other villain of the book. Like, she fucked over Kat from childhood, teaching her, you know, just to hate and kill and maim and just poisoning her. Yeah, hate herself and go kill vampires. I don't care if you get hurt or not.
The mom is definitely an interesting character through the whole series, as I recall. And I'm not jumping ahead here, but Kat's conflicted relationship with her and the way she changes over time is a pretty interesting arc, I think.
Yeah, the mother is very nasty in the first book. We all kind of just hate her. Like, even in the 9th hour, shit's going down. Bones rescued you, okay? He rescued you, and you're still talking shit. You're still.
Well, she wouldn't have been in that position if it weren't for Bones.
I mean,
sort of. Or Kat's involvement with Bones. So
sort of.
You can kind of see her. But then again, she wouldn't have found Bones if she hadn't been pushing her daughter to do this stuff. So I did like it when Kat stood up to her and said, look, you are part of this. You knew what was going on. You were happy with it. Now that it's gotten real, now you're being all whiny about it. So I really did like that speech from Kat.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Take ownership. You played your part in your parents being murdered.
I mean, they weren't very nice people.
No. But I mean, when she came in with that hickey, oh my God. They're like, you're out there doing the devil stuff. Like, what are you doing? Like, oh my God. They tripping.
Yeah, they're the classic American Gothics, right? You could just see them in front of the barn with the pitchfork.
Oh my God, right? But I think like one of the best scenes with Kat and her mother is when she starts yabbering on, and she just cold cocks her. She cold cocks her.
And Bones is like, I'm so glad you did that, because I would have had to.
She just needed her to shut up before she said something that she could not, get back. Like, shut up, woman, damn. That's what you get. I can't imagine punching my mother out, but I mean, this is a special situation.
I don't know. When I was 19, I could imagine that.
If I had vampire blood and I was strong enough to knock somebody out with one punch, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Like, just...
It would have to be a complete knockout. Otherwise, it'd be not a good situation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, after that.
Otherwise, I'm dead. I'll never find my body.
After that after that kind of training session.
Yeah, that training session was kind of crazy, though.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to start playing the Rocky song and just be like, yeah, Eye of the Tiger, go for it, Kat. Run 40 miles in the rain. You can do it.
I'm like, I'd be dead after 5. I mean, literally on the ground.
I can't even run 1 mile. Like, I'm dead. Nope. Just eat me.
Right?
It's not happening.
But I think it was good to include those details so that we really know how supernatural she is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh, absolutely, yes.
If they'd said 2 miles or 5 miles, you'd be like, well, okay, yuck, but okay. But 40 miles? Oh my God, okay, this is something else.
She'd run those miles, then they would spar, and then sometimes she'd need blood to heal. She was so damaged, and they do this again and again.
Then she'd wake up in bed with him, being the cover hog, and give herself a concussion as she ran out the door. Oh my God.
That was pretty funny.
Do you guys want to talk about Danny for a minute?
Danny.
Yeah,
sure.
I remember being surprised that he turned out to be more significant than I expected. Like, I thought he was just going to be kind of a throwaway character.
He played into the part that humans are just as nasty as vampires, and that was what she had to learn. Because, she hated him, and therefore she hated men, but she still kind of liked human men. And she put all her prejudice of Danny against Bones and was all like, oh, you're just going to screw me because you said you love me, and then you're going to leave me? Because that's what he did. And Bones is like, no, fuck that guy.
Yeah, and you can really understand Bones's reaction. But I felt like Danny's original bad move, the date rape, did more to damage Kat's self-esteem than anything else, right? She's like, I can't really do this. I'm not good at it. It's just it's me. Don't worry. Just and so the way he went about starting to undo that damage was really tender. I liked that. I don't know how realistic it is, but
I mean, to me, no more realistic than him just crushing the crap out of Danny's hand. I mean,
he really should have planted some other memory, though.
Yeah, he should have, because that came back to bite them.
Yep.
He ran and basically told.
Yeah.
He should have green-eyed him, or whatever they say. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, he still left some memory, like the new boyfriend's a badass, but, also I slammed my hand in the car door or something,
Yeah. But
agreed.
Danny Milton, the worst.
He deserved worse than a broken hand.
Yeah, and he's still out there, so I guess it's too soon to talk about the apartment guy down the hall, right? Because I think he plays
Timmy?
a bigger role. Yeah, Timmy. Later in the series.
Don't jump ahead. Just talk about this book. Don't stop jumping ahead. We can talk about Timmy now.
There's hints there. There's some hints there.
Well, Timmy's fun. He definitely is friends with Kat. He definitely likes her, but he is scared of her boyfriend.
Yeah.
As he should be.
Well, they dropped that one hint where he's like, the Men in Black are real. And she's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And I think that's I'll just say that's significant.
Well, I mean, the Men in Black are real. We meet them at the end of this book when Don shows up with Tate. I'm like, oh, Tate.
Stop jumping ahead. Stop foreshadowing.
I know. But I thought it was kind of cool how, they come in and they're like, hey, I want to make a deal. And she's like, what? What deal? She wasn't going for it.
She negotiates like a badass. I was really impressed with that. So that's something that maybe a 22 or a 19-year-old woman would have difficulty with. And it's not something she practiced, as part of her training. It was all about the physical shit. So, but by the time we get to that point in the book, she really knows what's important to her.
Yeah, because she negotiated, and this is something that you're right. Not many people would think about this on the spot, but she's like, okay, 10 years of service, and that's it.
Yeah.
None of this other stuff. You're going to keep paying me even when I'm not working for you. And if I die, you're going to keep paying my mother.
Yep.
I mean, she really laid it out. So I think she really covered all the bases, even though she would have to work for them longer than 10 years, but only 3 times, but no longer than a month total, which was also very smart.
Yeah. Yeah, because negotiating with government agencies, although I have to admit, I wonder how much that deal would be worth in the end if they really had leverage on her, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in the moment, I really enjoyed reading that. I really love a good negotiation. Maybe it's because I'm so bad at it. I really like watching a character do it right.
Same.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. But, I honestly, in my personal opinion, I know it had to go this way because it's, in the script, quote unquote. But I feel like had she chosen to go with Bones, they would have been okay.
Oh, definitely. He would have protected her.
Her mother, she had to do what she thought was right, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. The mother would, it would be, I don't know. It's hard to say. Bones pretty experienced with this kind of shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's been challenging powerful vampires for a long time, and he knows the ins and outs, and he knows what he can handle, and he knows how to. I don't know. So it is. I could see her point of view, and the one thing that's not totally clear, I think, in this book is whether Bones is going to really believe she's dead, because she leaves him a note, and the story is that she died in that car traffic disaster that Bones caused, and he knows that that's not true. So I think he knows she's still alive, and this is me not exactly remembering the books, so I'm not jumping ahead. I think he's got to know that she's still alive, but so that was a little bit unclear to me, I guess. Like, what is he going to do about that? I would have liked to seen some kind of little epilogue about what's going on in his head.
Yeah, because we end with her, so we never get back to him. But I think one of the last things, I don't have the book in front of me, but I think one of the last things was she was like remembering him saying that he would find her or he would come for her.
Yeah.
You can
run. Like, if you run, I'll chase you and I will always find you.
Yeah. And it's funny because when that part came up, I was like, oh, that's so nice in this situation. But normally that's really stalker-like and kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And he was saying it in a kind of stalkery moment when he was torturing her, right? Like way back when they first met. And he's like, yeah, you can run, but I know who you are. I know where you live. I'll kill your grandparents.
Yep.
And now he's like, I just love you so much. I'll find you no matter where you go, which also sounds creepy.
Yeah, there's a lot about romance and paranormal romance in particular that is borders on stalkery. The whole possessiveness that's very common, like the territoriality is what they called it here, but the whole mine thing and the fated mates tropes and all that stuff. So I think part of us, I don't know, there's people who hate it, I assume, but those of us who don't hate it, when it's right, it feels good. It's just when it's wrong, it's awful.
Yeah. So. Exactly. When it's right, it's good. When it's wrong, oh, it's so creepy.
Yeah.
I think because I believe the progression of their relationship in this, 350-ish or whatever pages, I believed it. Mm-hmm. So it didn't come off creepy in the end, but only when you start to think, like in the setting of the real world, oh boy.
Yeah.
They had months together. They were together for like 5 months, and he was in love instantly, but he didn't say it yet. Like, he waited, and then she couldn't say it. And I really loved that flipped trope where he was like, it's instant love for me. Like, I'm all in, but I'm going to wait for you. And then I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to keep waiting for you to feel comfortable to say it. And it took her, 300 pages before she could say it? Like, it took her most of the book before she was finally like, yeah, you have my heart. I love you too.
Well, for most of the book, it wasn't that in a lot of books you'll see whoever's the more reluctant partner knows it, they feel it, but they're fighting it, right? Mm-hmm. And in this book, she was in denial to herself up until near the end, right? Yeah. She's like, I can't love a monster. So she had to go through that whole, okay, some vampires might be kind of okay. and to come to that realization. I don't think she's quite made it to the idea that the good versus bad spectrum is kind of the same among vampires and humans. I still think she thinks humans are inherently better and there's just some exceptions in the vampire world. and exceptions in the human world. But I think, there's a lot more books to go. So.
Yeah, definitely. She has a long way to go, I think, with the way she thinks of things. But at the end of this book, though, I kind of felt like, so for example, when her mother showed up at the house and she told Bones to hide, right?
Mm-hmm.
He kind of was like, okay, this is enough. Enough is enough.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
He said, you've got some things to figure out and you get back at me when you do.
Yeah.
And no, we're not breaking up, but I'm around.
Yeah.
He left. I'm like, good for him.
That was a great boundary setting scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for people out there that, don't have the self-esteem to see when their partner is, in a bad place mentally or emotionally, I think that was a really good, example of setting some boundaries even when you love the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Because she had to come to that point on her own without him pushing her toward it.
Yep.
And she eventually did. I mean, she was like, oh my God, I can't deal with, I don't care about this other stuff anymore. Even though still all the way up until the very end, I feel like she was at a point where she was able to defend vampires. It didn't, even when she wanted him back,
Yeah.
all that stuff started happening real fast and she wasn't able to demonstrate she was kind of over that hump until it was time to, kind of defend vampires to Don, right?
Mm-hmm.
I should reread that scene, but I feel like Bones is still the only vampire she really trusts. I mean, she's met Spade, she knows that Bones trusts him, but I don't think she feels much towards him, right? I don't think she's
much, but she refuses to go after other vampires. She's like only killing vampires.
That's right. So,
Right, she said only bad ones.
Only bad ones. And Don's like, yeah, sure. There's enough baddies that we'll take care of it. Like,
yeah.
So
that's a good starting point.
Before Kat wouldn't have cared. She'd have been like, okay, let's kill all the vampires.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's her progress. She's like, only these vampires can die.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of like, we're going to skip back to the end a little bit. I thought it was kind of hilarious how like she is chained to this bed, but she remains chained only really not to give herself away.
Right.
She finally has it out, she just, comes for Tate a little bit, comes for Don a little bit. I'm like, dang girl. Woo.
That was a great scene.
I thought it was hilarious that she didn't rip the handcuffs. She ripped the thing off the bed rail.
Yeah. And beat him.
I was like, wouldn't the handcuffs be easier to break? But she didn't want the handrail.
I guess she wanted the dramatics of it. I don't know. And then the guy outside's like, are you okay? They're like, we're fine. Don't come in here.
It's all good.
It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. She did some serious damage. She shattered his kneecaps. That's not something to come back from very easily. I don't know, maybe she gives him some
unless you have vampire blood, but
which she did give Tate at the end of that book.
But he
was like, did I make the team? She's like, here. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that was what, the confrontation at the governor's mansion when people got hurt? I forget.
No. What are you talking about?
So she gets airlifted out to the base, right? And then there's a bunch of people hurt, and I forget why.
From the car accident, that car chase scene.
Right.
With Bones threw Tate and Pete out of the car, and then he threw the SUV on top of the other two cars.
Right. I'm getting
to rescue Kat.
I'm getting my sequence of events mixed up here.
You're fine. That's why you have me.
That's right.
So yeah, there were a couple of scenes right there at the end in the last 10 or 15%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was jam-packed, back to back.
Which I liked. I liked that there was so much action, and I liked that there was romance. I mean, I liked it was well balanced, like in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people also classified it this way on Goodreads. To me, this is more of an urban fantasy novel than a paranormal romance novel because it's so much more than just a relationship between Kat and Bones.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's more about the world and the action and the violence and the fighting the bad guys than it is about falling in love. Like, the falling in love is a very strong part of the story, but it's not the entire focus of the story.
I mean, because think about it this way. We're not doing it against brick walls while people are chasing them. We're not in the woods, doing all this crazy shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's different.
Yes, it's very different.
There's no ice in anybody's hair.
Right.
That series, oh God.
That is so not sexy. But anyway, we've already covered that.
Yeah. So that's why I appreciate this so much, because while I still really like them as a couple and I'm rooting for them as a couple, I'm like, ooh, I like Kat on her own. I kind of like Bones on his own. I like the dramatics. I like the car chases. I like the stabby.
Stabby.
Yes.
I'm skimming over the last chapter while we're talking, and this part made me laugh when they get the safe house, when Bones gets them to a safe house after the car wreck, and the Rodney is like, well, I've got 2 bedrooms, and she's like, this is perfect for you, Mom. Click. She's like, where are you going? Upstairs with Bones. Good night.
She locks her in there.
It's like every teenage fantasy when you're fighting with.
And then Rodney locked the second door. He's like, just in case she gets frisky.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
She did actually threaten her mother too, like, stop making all that noise before Rodney gets hungry.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't really know if he would eat her, but whatever.
Yeah. He seems pretty well behaved.
Yeah. So yeah, Rodney is a ghoul, we find out also. Which I guess is the first non-vampire thing we've come across.
No, there was the whole thing
with
the
ghosts.
There was the ghost. And we know about ghouls ahead of time because that's what Bones does with the bodies that he leaves. So his friend Ted feeds the ghouls, right? But this is the first individual that we met.
Right.
I think she saw one at the club, and she's like, what the fuck is that?
Yes.
But they didn't, meet it.
Yes, that was where the type was introduced, the species.
Yeah. The species.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. But the ghost, since you mentioned the ghost, I'm like, that was a crazy scene. She's drinking and trying to get the ghost to tell her information, and she keeps taking these big old swigs and drinks. She is so damn drunk, and if she was human, she would be dead from alcohol poisoning. But Bones goes, why did you drink all that? Tell you to drink all of it? Oh my God.
He didn't tell me not to. That was a weird scene where the way the ghost was getting his
flying through her throat.
Ew.
That was pretty gross. It was like being felt up by a ghost trying to get some alcohol.
It was haunting my panties. Like,
no.
So wrong.
I will say this author knows how to trigger that response. Like,
And the funniest thing is that it is funny. It's like, it's so gross, but funny. Only Janine Frost can do that. I'm laughing, but it's so gross.
Yeah.
And it's this that's making us cringe, not all of the bloody violence, death, killing, dismemberment, torture. No, we didn't bat an eye at any of that. But the ghosts and the panties, and all 3 of us are like, ew, no!
I think we all kind of, when you read a vampire novel, you know you're going to be in for some blood and some guts, right? So.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, my gosh. Ugh. Yeah, I thought this was a pretty solid start to a series. I'm fully invested. I want to know what's going to happen next, how Kat is going to get with these, soldiers, how that's going to go, how her mother is going to be even. Her mother.
Because she's definitely a loose cannon, right?
Yeah, I think she's going to be making everyone miserable.
That's Justina for you.
I mean, overall, I like her arc in the series, but there are definitely some frustrating moments with her.
I don't know. I just really think this was a solid first installment. You know how sometimes you read the first book and the first book is like, it was okay, but it was good enough to continue. This was more than just okay and good enough to continue.
I think the military element is really different from any of the other urban fantasy out there, right? We don't see that at all. I can't think of any urban fantasy that I've read that has that element where she's really inducted into a governmental unit and uses that in the future. So I think that's really unique in the urban fantasy world.
Yeah.
Kat as a character is really unique, being that she's half vampire and half human. I'm sure that's happened before, but nothing pops out to me like
Riley
glaring.
Jensen character is half vampire and half werewolf. And of course there's Kim Harrison's Rachel that is, part everything. So so I don't know that that's the most unique thing about it, but
I don't know. I haven't read that one where she's part everything. I don't know.
Kim Harrison. Yeah, and it's really, that one is less about genetics, like what her parents did or were, as it is about sort of blood manipulation. But yeah, that's an interesting one too. It's a kitchen sink urban fantasy where like every book introduces a new paranormal species, and it turns out she has some kind of significant place in that hierarchy, either by inherent talent or by the relationships she makes. So I don't know. It's fun for a while, but it gets that's a whole nother series we could talk about.
Were there any other highlights you think we should cover for this installment?
I mean, going back to Kat just being a unique character, I highlighted her speech to Bones when she was like, I'm an insecure, judgmental, bitchy, borderline homicidal person, but I love you. And I was like, oh my God, I feel that. You and me both. Not that I'm homicidal, but, just that she was able to claim all of her flaws and hold them. And she's not letting go of them necessarily, but she's like, this is who I am. I'm a complete mess. But I love you, and for whatever reason, you love me, and let's make this work. Until she leaves him at the very end. But again, I really appreciated that she's just like, this is me. This is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. You know what? Something you said just now made me think of something that conflicted in the book. You said until she leaves him at the end. Mm-hmm. So that made me think of, when she was thinking through her plan, she did say something to the effect that, 10 years is a long time. I can't expect him to wait 10 years, right? So she kind of disregarded that he would wait around. But then just a few scenes earlier when she's talking to Don and he's like, oh, you and your vampire friend have been doing this and he's been around for a while. She's like, not a while. Vampires think of a time differently. Mm-hmm. So she makes an excuse for how long. She says, well, it hasn't been that long for vampires. But then she turns around and says, 10 years is so long for him. How could I make him, think he would wait for me? It just didn't jive.
That's her self-esteem. That right there is her self-esteem. Yeah. So she's trying to defend him and hide how deep their relationship is to Dawn. And she's like, 5 months? That's nothing. Like, it's nothing. That's he means nothing. Days. We're just screwing. He'll walk away after 5 months because that's like a blink. But when she's like, oh my God, he won't wait around 10 years, that's her internalized, like, nobody loves me. Nobody's going to stick around for me. I can't expect him to sit around for 10 years to wait for me. Because even in her mind, 10 years is a long time. She's 22. She's barely survived 2 decades. Time. She can't expect him to love her that long.
This is also the first time where she kind of realizes that if she doesn't change, and her mother lectures her about it too, but this is right around the time where she starts realizing that if she doesn't allow herself to be changed into a vampire, that she's going to be left behind, that her age process is not going to allow, I don't know, that it's just not great with the vampire who's going to live for indefinitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that she was a little bit past that. I mean, that thinking as far as bonus is concerned and her not being good enough to be, someone who would be,
yes and
he would want to
no.
wait for. Obviously all her insecurities just don't disappear like that. But I thought that in this moment, they had just had this moment. She was past that. I guess not.
I think it's more of like she's trying to let him go because she knows, he can't come find her. She can't talk to him. It's very pessimistic. The world is over.
So it's more for her own benefit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to think he's not going to wait for me because I have to do this and it's going to be 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and it's going to make it easier for me to walk away from him if I think this about him.
Yes, exactly.
I would agree with that.
Well, I mean, I don't think this is any kind of spoiler because there's 7 books. We'll see how long that sticks. Let's see. So that's going to be fun to read as well, I think. So, Yay. Any other hot topics, ladies?
Not that we haven't already covered, but there's just so much in this book. I really liked it.
There was a lot in this book. Like, it started with action and it ends with action and there's everything in between. This was an amazing book.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's do our ratings before we come up on the hour. So, Casey, why don't you start?
So when I first read this book back in 2010, I gave it 5 stars because I was so blown away by how amazing it was. And now I also give it 5 stars because I'm still blown away by how amazing it is. Like, it has held up over the years. I love Cat and Bones so much.
I would agree that it holds up really well over time. For a book that was originally published in 2009, technology has changed a lot in the last 10 years. And in this book, it's universal enough. The only thing that seems a little off is that she doesn't have a cell phone. But, I think that was like one line in the book. So I'm going to give it a 4. I really liked it, but I think the series gets better. So I'm holding off on the 5 for the later books.
Okay. Now, I was looking at my Goodreads rating, and I didn't realize I actually read this in 2013, so I was really late to the party. But I rated it 4 back then, and I would stick with the 4. And I do agree with Nicola. I do remember me just falling hard for this series. So I'm holding off on the 5. It was totally worth every minute of listening. I love the audiobook. I also consumed it that way then, and I consumed it that way now. I really enjoyed the narrator, and that just really, I don't know, I just liked everything about it. I really have no complaints really, except for, I just know that it's going to get even better, and you can't give something a perfect rating when you know it gets better. That's all there is. That's my only reasoning.
I think it's like the rating it within the series. Like, if you compare this book to, say, some of the other ones that we've read, it's totally a 5. But I guess within the series, it's not the best one of the series, in my opinion.
I concur.
I don't know if it's the best one, but it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it is good. Okay, guys, so if you have read the book and you are reading along with us, please find us in the Facebook group and let's talk about it. Let us know what you thought about Halfway to the Grave and if you enjoyed it as much as we did. So I'm excited to talk about it with you guys.
Yes.
So February we're going to do book 2, and that is One Foot in the Grave. And we will return to the world of Cat and Bones. Oh yeah, I'm looking at it on Goodreads right now. I'm so excited.
Yeah, as always, it was hard not to jump into the second book right away.
I know, but you know what? I'm forcing myself not to jump ahead. I'm forcing myself to hold off into a few days before we record for this series because I just don't want to get into that mess where I'm like reading 3 weeks ahead and then I'm even more ahead and I'm trying to start the next book. I just don't want to do it to myself. So patience is going to be my thing with this series.
Anticipation.
Patience is a virtue.
Absolutely.
We need the Tim Curry Rocky Horror Picture Show anticipation GIF. Anticipation. I'm dating myself now. So.
I'm going to try to find that GIF. We might have to use it in the Facebook group after we talk about this one in the group live.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, okay, guys, we're done. Are we done, ladies?
We're done.
We're done.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. And until next time, happy reading. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Happy reading.
If you enjoyed today's book chat episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. You can follow me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. Most importantly, you can share this podcast with friends and family that enjoy all things bookish, including author interviews. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.